The invasion, Earth under siege. The sky burned orange as the alien ships descended upon Earth. Humanity had long debated whether we were alone in the universe, but no one had imagined first contact would come in the form of an invasion. The Zarkith, as they called themselves, arrived without warning or mercy. Cities crumbled under their advanced weaponry, and governments fell in a matter of days. The few surviving news broadcasts painted a grim picture. Earth's military forces were outmatched and outgunned. Panic spread like wildfire as people realized there was nowhere left to run. In the small town of Millbrook, 10-year-old Sarah huddled with her parents in their basement. The ground shook with each distant explosion, and dust rained down from the ceiling. Sarah clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly, trying to be brave like the heroes in her favorite books. "It'll be okay, sweetie," her mother whispered, though her voice trembled. "We just have to stay quiet and wait for help to come." But as the hours stretched into days, it became clear that no help was coming. The family's meager food supplies dwindled, and the sounds of alien patrols grew closer. Sarah's father, a former soldier, knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. "We need to move," he said grimly. "Find other survivors, see if there's any organized resistance left." Under the cover of night, they emerged from their shelter. The town Sarah had grown up in was unrecognizable. Buildings reduced to rubble, cars overturned and burning. The air was thick with smoke and an acrid smell that made her eyes water. As they crept through the ruins, Sarah spotted movement in the shadows. She tugged on her father's sleeve, pointing silently. A group of people huddled behind a collapsed wall, fear evident in their eyes. Sarah's father approached cautiously, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "We're human," he called softly. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" An older man emerged, his face lined with exhaustion and grief. "They took my grandson," he said, voice breaking. "The aliens, they're rounding up children. We don't know why." Sarah's parents exchanged a horrified glance. Her mother pulled her close protectively, but Sarah's mind was racing. Why would the aliens want human children? What were they planning? The group decided to band together, figuring there was safety in numbers. As they moved through the town, they encountered more survivors and heard similar stories. The Zarkith seemed particularly interested in capturing young humans, leading to speculation and fear about their motives. Days passed as the ragtag group of survivors evaded alien patrols and scrounged for supplies. They heard rumors of a resistance forming in the mountains, but the journey would be perilous. Sarah listened intently as the adults debated their options, her young mind absorbing every detail. One night, as they huddled in an abandoned warehouse, Sarah had a vivid dream. She saw herself standing before a towering alien, its insectoid features both terrifying and fascinating. But instead of fear, she felt a strange sense of understanding. When she woke, an idea had taken root. "What if we're looking at this all wrong?" she asked, her voice small but determined. The adults turned to her, surprised. "What if the aliens aren't just here to destroy us? What if they're looking for something?" Her father knelt beside her, a mix of pride and concern in his eyes. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Sarah took a deep breath, organizing her thoughts. "They're taking kids, right? But they're not hurting all of us. Maybe they need our help with something. Maybe we can talk to them." The idea was met with skepticism and even anger from some of the group. How could they possibly communicate with the creatures that had laid waste to their world? But Sarah's words had planted a seed of hope, however small. As the days wore on, the group witnessed more of the aliens' behavior. They saw Zarkith soldiers hesitate before firing on unarmed humans, and even instances of them providing food to starving survivors. It was as if they were following orders they didn't fully agree with. Sarah's theory gained traction, especially after they rescued a young boy who had escaped from alien captivity. He spoke of strange tests and questions, but also of curiosity from his captors. The aliens seemed genuinely interested in understanding humans, even as they continued their conquest. The survivors debated endlessly about what to do with this information. Some wanted to use it to better hide from the aliens, while others saw an opportunity for resistance. But it was Sarah who voiced the idea that would change everything. "We need to talk to them," she said, her voice stronger now. "Not hide, not fight. Talk. They came all this way. There has to be a reason. And if we can understand that reason, maybe we can stop this war." Her words hung in the air, met with silence. It was a child's naive hope, many thought. But in a world turned upside down, where all the rules had changed, perhaps naivety was exactly what they needed. As the group prepared to leave their temporary shelter, a piercing alarm cut through the air. Alien ships descended, closer than ever before. In the chaos that followed, Sarah found herself separated from the others. Terrified but determined, she ducked into a narrow alley. There, cornered and alone, she came face to face with a Zarkith soldier. Its many eyes fixed on her, mandibles clicking in what might have been surprise. Sarah's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. This was her chance to prove her theory. Taking a deep breath, she raised her hand in a gesture of peace. "Hello," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "My name is Sarah. Can we talk?" The alien tilted its head, studying her. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the fate of two species hung in the balance. Then, slowly, deliberately, the Zarkith lowered its weapon. As Sarah took her first tentative step forward, she knew that everything was about to change. The real test of humanity's resilience and ingenuity was just beginning. Hope in the ruins. Discovering an unexpected ally. Sarah's heart raced as she stood before the towering Zarkith soldier. The alien's compound eyes studied her intently, its mandibles clicking in what she hoped was curiosity rather than aggression. The sounds of chaos from the alien invasion faded into the background as an unexpected connection formed between human child and extraterrestrial warrior. "You understand." The alien's voice was a gravelly whisper, the words clearly unfamiliar on its strange tongue. Sarah nodded, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Yes. I want to understand you too. Why are you here? Why are you taking our children?" The Zarkith soldier seemed to hesitate, its antennae twitching as if picking up distant signals. Then, to Sarah's amazement, it gestured for her to follow. With a mix of fear and determination, she fell into step behind the alien, leaving the relative safety of the alley. As they moved through the ruined streets, Sarah caught glimpses of other survivors watching in disbelief. She saw her parents in the distance, their faces etched with horror as they spotted her walking alongside the enemy. Sarah wanted to call out, to explain, but she knew this might be their only chance to uncover the truth. The alien led her to a small ship hidden among the debris of a collapsed building. With a series of clicks and whistles, a door slid open. Sarah hesitated at the threshold, every instinct screaming at her to run. But the memory of her dream, of that strange sense of understanding, propelled her forward. Inside the ship, Sarah found herself in a chamber unlike anything she'd ever seen. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent light, and strange symbols flowed across curved screens. The air hummed with energy, making the hairs on her arms stand on end. The Zarkith soldier approached a central console, its long fingers dancing over the controls. A holographic image flickered to life, showing a planet that was definitely not Earth. Its surface was a swirl of toxic gases, and Sarah could make out the faint outlines of domed cities. "Home," the alien said, its voice tinged with what might have been sadness. "Dying." Sarah's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Your planet is in trouble. Is that why you came here? To find a new home?" The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly, and more images appeared. Sarah saw Zarkith children, not so different from human kids in their playfulness and curiosity, but many appeared sickly, their exoskeletons dull and brittle. "Need help," the alien managed. "Human children. Adaptable. Strong." A chill ran down Sarah's spine as she began to piece together the Zarkith's desperate plan. They hadn't come to Earth as conquerors, but as refugees seeking salvation for their species. The abduction of human children wasn't an act of cruelty, but a misguided attempt at finding a solution. Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Zarkith soldier's posture stiffened, its attention drawn to a flashing display. Sarah caught a glimpse of human figures approaching. A resistance attack. In that moment, Sarah made a decision that would alter the course of both human and Zarkith history. She placed her small hand on the alien's arm, drawing its attention back to her. "Let me help," she said firmly. "I can talk to them. Explain. We don't have to fight." The alien studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Together, they emerged from the ship, Sarah in the lead. The human resistance fighters, led by Sarah's father, froze in shock at the sight. "Wait!" Sarah called out, her voice ringing clear across the rubble-strewn street. "Please, just listen. There's something you need to know." What followed was a tense standoff as Sarah, with the help of her newfound alien ally, explained the truth behind the invasion. She spoke of the Zarkith's dying world, their desperate search for a solution, and the misunderstandings that had led to so much bloodshed. As she talked, more aliens emerged from hiding, watching the exchange with a mixture of fear and hope. The human resistance fighters lowered their weapons, wary but willing to listen. Sarah's father stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the Zarkith soldier standing protectively near his daughter. "If what you're saying is true," he said slowly, "then we've all made terrible mistakes. But how can we trust them after everything that's happened?" It was the Zarkith soldier who answered, its voice stronger now as it used the ship's translation technology. "We offer knowledge, technology, in exchange for help. Cooperation, not conquest." A murmur ran through the gathered humans. The potential for peace, for an exchange that could benefit both species, was tantalizing. But years of mistrust and the fresh wounds of invasion were not easily forgotten. Sarah, sensing the precarious nature of the moment, spoke up once more. "I know it's scary. I'm scared too. But think about it. They came all this way, across the stars. They must be just as afraid as we are. If we can work together, maybe we can save both our worlds." Her words, spoken with the simple wisdom of a child, seemed to break through the tension. Slowly, hesitantly, humans and Zarkith began to lower their weapons and regard each other with new eyes. In the days that followed, a fragile truce took hold. News of the true nature of the Zarkith's mission spread, met with skepticism at first, but gradually gaining acceptance as more evidence came to light. Scientists from both species began to collaborate, sharing knowledge, and working towards solutions for the Zarkith's dying planet. Sarah found herself at the center of it all, her ability to bridge the gap between humans and aliens making her an invaluable part of the newfound alliance. She spent hours learning about Zarkith culture and biology, her natural curiosity helping to ease tensions and foster understanding. But not everyone was ready to forgive and forget. Pockets of human resistance remained, viewing any cooperation with the aliens as a betrayal. And among the Zarkith, there were those who saw humans as inferior beings, unworthy of their advanced knowledge. As Sarah worked alongside her alien friends, she became aware of the enormous challenges that lay ahead. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and the path to peace was fraught with danger. One evening, as she sat watching the sunset with her Zarkith companion, whom she had come to call Zix, Sarah voiced her fears. "What if we can't do it? What if we can't save your world and ours?" Zix's antennae drooped slightly, but there was a determined set to its mandibles. "Then we try. Together. That is, hope." Sarah nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. She thought of all the stories she'd read, of heroes facing impossible odds. Now she found herself living such a tale, not with superpowers or advanced weapons, but with understanding and compassion as her tools. As the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Sarah made a silent promise. She would do everything in her power to ensure that both humans and Zarkith had a future among those stars. The road ahead would be difficult, But with newfound allies and the resilience of both species, there was reason to hope. The ruins of Earth's cities stood as a stark reminder of the cost of misunderstanding. But amidst the rubble, the seeds of a new future were taking root. A future where humanity's greatest strengths would be tested not in war, but in the monumental task of saving two worlds. The journey begins, venturing into alien territory. The massive Zarkith mothership loomed over what was once downtown New York, its organic curves a stark contrast to the shattered skyscrapers below. Sarah stood at the base of the ship's loading ramp, her small backpack filled with a curious mix of human comforts and alien technology. At her side, Zix's antennae twitched with nervous energy. "Ready for this?" Sarah asked, glancing up at her alien friend. Zix's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had come to recognize as a laugh. "Doubt either of us truly ready, but necessary." Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath. In the month since the truce, plans had been made for a joint human-Zarkith mission to the aliens' homeworld. The goal was ambitious: find a way to restore the Zarkith's dying planet, while also adapting Earth to support both species. Sarah, with her unique ability to bridge the gap between the two races, had been chosen as a key member of the expedition. As they ascended the ramp, Sarah caught sight of her parents standing with a group of human scientists and military personnel. The fear in their eyes was plain to see, but there was pride there too. Sarah waved, trying to project more confidence than she felt. Inside the ship, the air thrummed with energy. Human scientists marveled at the bioorganic technology, while Zarkith engineers made final preparations for the long journey. Sarah felt a momentary pang of doubt. Was she really ready for this? Could a 10-year-old girl really make a difference on an alien world? A hand on her shoulder startled her from her thoughts. Dr. Elena Dawson, the lead human scientist, smiled down at her. Having second thoughts, Sarah shook her head. "No, it's a lot, you know." Elena knelt down, meeting Sarah's eyes. "It is, but remember, you've already done the impossible. You showed us that communication and understanding were possible when everyone else was ready to keep fighting. That's why you're here." Sarah nodded, feeling the surge of determination. As the ship's massive engines roared to life, she took her place among the crew. The journey to the Zarkith homeworld would take several months, even with their advanced propulsion technology. It would be a time of learning, preparation, and growing trust between the two species. As Earth shrank to a blue marble behind them, Sarah spent her days in a whirlwind of activity. She attended briefings on Zarkith biology and the complex environmental issues facing their planet. She acted as a liaison, helping to smooth over cultural misunderstandings between humans and aliens. And in quiet moments, she and Zix would sit in the ship's observation dome, sharing stories of their respective worlds. "Tell me again about the forests," Zix asked one day, its compound eyes reflecting the starfield beyond the dome. Sarah smiled, launching into a description of Earth's lush woodlands, the smell of pine, the sound of birds singing. She could see the longing in Zix's posture. The Zarkith had been without such natural beauty for generations, their world choked by industrial pollution and runaway climate change. As the weeks passed, the cultural exchange deepened. Humans learned the intricacies of Zarkith social structures, while the aliens began to grasp concepts like music and art. Sarah found herself at the center of these exchanges, her natural curiosity and openness making her a bridge between worlds. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Tensions flared as the reality of their situation set in. Some humans, still bitter about the invasion, clashed with Zarkith who viewed them as primitive. Sarah often found herself mediating disputes, her youth sometimes allowing her to cut through adult prejudices and find common ground. One particularly heated argument broke out over the ship's limited resources. A group of human scientists accused the Zarkith of hoarding critical materials, while the aliens insisted they were necessary for the ship's function. As voices raised and tempers flared, Sarah stepped between the groups. "Stop it," she shouted, her voice carrying an authority that belied her age. "Don't you see? This is exactly why we're here. To learn how to share, how to work together. If we can't do it on this ship, how can we expect to do it on a planetary scale? Her words seemed to hang in the air, and slowly the anger drained from both sides. It was a turning point, a moment when both species realized the magnitude of the task before them and the necessity of true cooperation. As they entered the final stretch of their journey, anticipation and anxiety grew in equal measure. The Zarkith grew more agitated as they approached their home system, their usual composure cracking under the weight of what they might find. Sarah spent long hours with the science team, poring over data on the Zarkith world. The challenges seemed insurmountable. Toxic atmosphere, acidic oceans, soil stripped of nutrients. But as she watched humans and Zarkith working side by side, combining their knowledge and technologies, she felt a spark of hope. Finally, after months of travel, they entered orbit around the Zarkith homeworld. From space, it was a sickly swirl of yellows and browns, so different from the vibrant blue of Earth. Sarah pressed her hand against the viewing port, her heart aching for Zix and all the Zarkith who called this dying world home. As the ship began its descent through the planet's toxic atmosphere, alarms suddenly blared. The vessel shuddered, caught in some kind of energy field. Panic erupted on the bridge as both humans and Zarkith scrambled to understand what was happening. "It's a defense system," one of the Zarkith engineers shouted. "But it shouldn't be active. Unless..." The implications hung heavy in the air. Had there been a coup in their absence? Were there factions on the surface who opposed the alliance with humans? As the ship was drawn inexorably towards the surface, Sarah felt a mix of fear and determination. Whatever awaited them on the planet below, she knew that the real test of their newfound alliance was about to begin. The fate of two worlds would be decided not just by grand diplomatic gestures, but by the actions of individuals, human and Zarkith alike, in the face of adversity. Sarah grabbed Zix's claw, squeezing it reassuringly. "Whatever happens," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them, "we face it together." Zix's antennae brushed against her hair in a gesture of affection. "Together," it agreed. As the ship plummeted towards the surface of the alien world, Sarah steeled herself for the challenges ahead. The journey that had begun with a simple act of communication in the ruins of Earth was about to enter its most dangerous phase. But with the combined strength, intelligence, and determination of two species, there was still hope. Hope for understanding, for redemption, and for a future among the stars. Revelations and sacrifices, uncovering the truth. The ship shuddered violently as it broke through the toxic cloud cover of the Zarkith homeworld. Sarah gripped her seat, knuckles white, as alarms blared throughout the vessel. Through the view screen, she could see the scared surface of the planet rushing up to meet them. "Brace for impact," Dr. Dawson shouted, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of stressed metal and panicked voices. With a bone-jarring crash, the ship plowed into the barren landscape. Emergency systems kicked in, filling the cabin with shock-absorbing foam. For several long moments, everything was silent and still. Then, slowly, the foam began to dissolve, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Sarah shook her head, trying to clear the ringing in her ears. "Zix," she called out, searching for her friend. The Zarkith appeared at her side, looking shaken but unharmed. "Functioning," it chittered. "You okay?" Before Sarah could respond, the ship's emergency hatch burst open. A squad of heavily armored Zarkith soldiers poured in, weapons at the ready. Sarah's heart sank. This wasn't the welcome they had hoped for. One of the soldiers stepped forward, its mandibles clicking rapidly in the Zarkith language. Zix translated for the humans. "They're saying we're under arrest for treason and collaboration with an enemy species." Dr. Dawson tried to reason with the soldiers, explaining their mission of peace and mutual aid. But the armed Zarkith were unmoved. They began herding the humans and their Zarkith allies out of the ship and onto the desolate surface of the planet. As they were marched across the barren landscape, Sarah took in her surroundings with a mix of fascination and horror. The sky was a sickly yellow, and the air burned her lungs despite the protective gear they'd been given. In the distance, she could see the domed cities of the Zarkith, glowing faintly in the haze. Their captors led them to a massive structure that seemed to grow out of the rocky ground. As they entered, Sarah gasped. The interior was a stark contrast to the dying world outside. Lush vegetation covered the walls, and the air was clean and cool. "What is this place?" she whispered to Zix. The Zarkith's antennae drooped. This is not possible. These are plants from our world's past, extinct for generations." Before Zix could elaborate, they were ushered into a large chamber. At its center stood a Zarkith unlike any Sarah had seen before. It was larger, its exoskeleton adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer and shift. "I am Sevix, High Counselor of the Zarkith," it announced, its voice resonating through the chamber. "And you are guilty of the highest treason, bringing our ancient enemy to our world." Dr. Dawson stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension. "There's been a misunderstanding. We've come in peace to help save your world." Xavix's compound eyes seemed to flash with anger. "Save our world? You humans are the reason our world is dying." A murmur of confusion ran through both the human and Zarkith members of the expedition. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. There was more to this story than they had been told. Xavix continued, its words dripping with centuries of bitterness. "Thousands of years ago, our species were not so different. We shared knowledge, technology. But your kind grew jealous of our advancements. You unleashed a biological weapon on our world, one that has been slowly killing our planet ever since." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Could it be true? Had humanity's ancestors really committed such a terrible act? But something didn't add up. Sarah stepped forward, her young voice ringing clear in the tense silence. "If that's true, then why contact us now? Why bring human children to your world?" Understanding dawned on Sarah. "You needed us to survive, to help your species adapt." Xavix nodded slowly. "Yes, but not all of my kind agreed with this plan. Many, like these soldiers, believe we should take revenge on humanity instead." The chamber erupted into chaos as both humans and Zarkith argued over this new information. Accusations flew, old wounds were reopened, and for a moment, it seemed that all hope of alliance would be lost. In the midst of the uproar, Sarah noticed Zix slipping away towards a side chamber. Curious and concerned, she followed her friend. What she found made her gasp. The chamber was filled with stasis pods, each containing a Zarkith child. But these children were different. Their exoskeletons showed signs of adaptation, hints of softer, more flexible structures. Zix turned to Sarah, its compound eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and hope. "This is why I joined the expedition. These are our future, a new generation of Zarkith, born of the genetic material we gathered from human children. They are the bridge between our species." Sarah's mind reeled at the implications. The Zarkith hadn't just been studying human children. They had been using their genetic material to save their own species. It was a revelation that could either doom their alliance or cement it forever. With newfound determination, Sarah marched back into the main chamber. The arguments were still raging, but she pushed her way to the center, standing between Xavix and Dr. Dawson. "Stop," she shouted, her voice carrying an authority that silenced the room. "Don't you see? This is bigger than old grudges or misunderstandings. 2 worlds are dying. 2 species are on the brink. But together, we have a chance to survive, to become something new, something better." She turned to Xavix. Show them the children." For a long moment, Xavix remained still. Then, slowly, it nodded. Perhaps it is time for the truth to be known. As the stasis chamber was revealed to all, a hush fell over the gathered humans and Zarkith. The sight of these hybrid children, a living bridge between 2 species, was a powerful symbol of what could be achieved through cooperation. Dr. Dawson was the first to break the silence. This changes everything. The scientific implications alone. Xavix's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Indeed, but it also presents us with a choice. Do we cling to the mistakes and hatred of the past, or do we move forward together into an uncertain but shared future? Sarah looked around the chamber, seeing the mix of hope and fear on both human and Zarkith faces. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be more misunderstandings, more challenges to overcome. But for the first time since they had arrived on this dying world, she felt a real sense of possibility. "We choose to move forward," she said, her young voice filled with conviction. "Together." As murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber, Sarah realized that this was just the beginning. The true test of their alliance was yet to come. But with the truth finally out in the open, and the stakes made clear, there was reason to hope. Hope for understanding, for redemption, and for a future that neither humans nor Zarkith could have imagined on their own. Humanity's stand. The final confrontation. The weeks following the revelation of the hybrid Zarkith children were a whirlwind of activity. The combined human-Zarkith team worked tirelessly, pooling their knowledge and resources to address the twin crises facing both worlds. Sarah found herself at the heart of it all, bridging gaps in communication and understanding that threatened to derail their fragile alliance. But as they made progress, a new threat emerged. A faction of hardline Zarkith, led by a militant commander named Khazrix, refused to accept the alliance. They saw the hybrid children as an abomination and the humans as a continued threat to their species. One morning, as Sarah and Zix were reviewing data on atmospheric composition, alarms blared throughout the complex. Khazrix and his followers had launched an attack, determined to destroy the hybrid children and the human invaders. "We need to get to the stasis chamber," Sarah shouted over the chaos. Zix nodded, its antennae twitching nervously as they ran through the corridors. They arrived to find Dr. Dawson and a team of human and Zarkith scientists desperately trying to secure the pods containing the hybrid children. Xavix was there too, its normally composed demeanor shaken. "We cannot let them destroy our future," Xavix clicked, mandibles quivering with emotion. The sound of weapons fire grew closer. Sarah's mind raced, trying to find a solution. Then it hit her, a crazy, desperate plan, but one that might just work. "The ship," she exclaimed. "If we can get the children to our ship, we can evacuate them. Buy us time to finish our work here." Dr. Dawson looked skeptical. "The ship was damaged in the crash. We don't even know if it can fly." "We have to try," Sarah insisted. She turned to Xavix. "Can you hold them off while we move the pods?" The High Counselor straightened, a new determination in its posture. "We will do what must be done. Go." What followed was a desperate race against time. Human and Zarkith alike formed a chain, carefully moving the precious stasis pods through the winding corridors of the complex. Sarah and Zix led the way, using their smaller size to scout ahead for danger. They were nearly to the exit when Khazrix and his forces caught up with them. The air filled with the sound of alien weapons and human gunfire. Sarah watched in horror as both humans and Zarkith fell, defending the future they had only just begun to build. "Keep going," Dr. Dawson shouted, laying down covering fire. "Get those pods to the ship." Sarah hesitated, torn between helping and continuing the mission. Zix gently pushed her forward. "Must protect future," it chittered. "Is why we here." With a heavy heart, Sarah pressed on. They emerged onto the barren surface of the Zarkith world, the toxic air burning their lungs even through their protective gear. The crashed ship loomed ahead, a beacon of hope in the desolate landscape. As they approached, Sarah saw a team of human and Zarkith engineers working feverishly on the ship's engines. Her heart soared. They had anticipated the need for escape and were preparing. "How long?" she called out as they began loading the pods. 10 minutes, came the reply. "Maybe less if we're lucky." But luck didn't seem to be on their side. Khazrix's forces burst from the complex, laying down a barrage of fire. Sarah watched in horror as one of the stasis pods took a hit, its systems flickering ominously. Without thinking, she ran to the damaged pod. Inside, she could see the small form of a hybrid child, its features a beautiful blend of human and Zarkith. The pod's life support was failing. "We need to open it," she shouted. Dr. Dawson appeared at her side, face pale behind her breathing mask. "The atmosphere. It'll kill the child instantly." Sarah looked around desperately, her eyes falling on her own breathing apparatus. In that moment, she knew what she had to do. "Use mine," she said, already unstrapping the mask. "Sarah, no," Dr. Dawson protested, but Sarah had made up her mind. With shaking hands, she removed her mask and placed it over the opening of the pod as Zix worked to release the seal. The toxic air burned her throat and eyes, but she held steady. As the pod opened, she saw the hybrid child take its first breath of filtered air. The world began to grow dim around her, but Sarah felt a sense of peace. She had given this child, this symbol of hope for two worlds, a chance at life. As she began to lose consciousness, she felt strong arms lift her. Through blurry eyes, she saw Zix carrying her towards the ship, its exoskeleton secreting a protective film over her face. "Hold on, Sarah." Zix's voice seemed to come from far away. "Not let you go. You are hope." The last thing Sarah heard before blackness took her was the roar of the ship's engines coming to life. When she awoke, days later, it was to a changed world. The ship had made it safely to a Zarkith colony on one of their moons, out of reach of Khazrix's forces. Her sacrifice had inspired both humans and Zarkith, cementing the alliance in a way no treaty ever could. The hybrid children were safe, already showing remarkable abilities to adapt to both Earth-like and Zarkith environments. They represented a new future, one where the line between human and alien blurred into something entirely new. As Sarah stood with Zix, watching the first of these children take their first steps in the colony's artificial atmosphere, she felt a profound sense of hope. There would be challenges ahead. Khazrix and his followers were still a threat, and both Earth and the Zarkith homeworld needed healing. But they had taken the first, crucial steps towards a shared future. "What happens now?" she asked Zix, her voice still raspy from her exposure to the toxic atmosphere. Zix's antennae brushed gently against her hair, a gesture of affection that had become familiar. "Now we build. Together. New world for all." Sarah nodded, a smile spreading across her face. The journey that had begun with a simple act of courage in the ruins of Earth had led to this moment, the dawn of a new era for both species. As she looked out at the stars, Sarah knew that the greatest adventure was just beginning. In the face of fear, hatred, and the unknown, humanity had taken its stand, not with weapons or conquest, but with understanding, sacrifice, and hope. And in doing so, they had not only saved themselves but forged a path to a future brighter than either species could have imagined alone. The end of one story, and the beginning of countless more.